I hope this thing finally works. I'll tell you, some days things go smoothly and other days not so smoothly. So I don't know if anybody can hear me. I hope you can. If anybody's out there, hopefully no one's fallen asleep. Okay. Um it shows that I'm live and I should be broadcasting. So if anyone can see me, indicate, let me know. Can you hear me okay? Or is something wrong? Good. Loud and clear. That's great. For some reason, I've been trying to do it with the OBS, but YouTube isn't working. So we're kind of back to the old YouTube way. There's a lot of things I'd like to add, but I made a few changes here. And what I did, I took the old sound setup that I had and I replaced it with a different one. Now, I'm not quite sure how good this is, but this right here is the microphone that I used when I first started on YouTube. And that was back in 2007 or 8 or whenever I did my first video. So, what I wanted to do, I wanted to try something a little different. Now, I don't know if you can hear this. Do you hear a dial tone? If you do, that means that my phone patch setup is now working. So, if anyone wants to call in and wants to share a story or anything else, you can feel free to call the number that I have posted. It should be at the top of the chat. I don't know. Let me open another one here because it's just something went wrong this morning. I don't know what happened. But anyway, it's been one of those weeks. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to tell you what's happened. Now, at the beginning of the week, I mean, obviously last Saturday we had our live, which went pretty well. And I was able to get the OBS to work. I shared some images and stuff like that. I've also tried, at least tried the best that I can, to install the what is it called? DaVinci Resolve software on this computer. It is a little bit old, but I wanted to edit some videos and I had a few things that I wanted to put. I'm going to try to upgrade my YouTube experience a bit, but I don't want to lose that old fashioned appeal. And the one thing that you'll notice about my channel, I don't really use any of the fancy sort of flashy things. I really don't see the point of it. What really annoys me is a lot of people, they make videos and then they have this text that kind of goes with what they're saying and it's flashes and it's so stupid. The other thing I hate are all the numerous edits. Oh, we got looks like a stray cat outside. He looks apprehensive. It's a black and white, one of those tuxedo cats. I don't think the ducks are bothering. It's just one of those things. So anyway, let's talk about what happened during the week. Now, again, I Sunday was a pretty standard day. I had a little work to do, and that's it. And what else? Monday, I started a job. A friend of mine, his mother lives in a house, and they were trying to hassle her with the insurance. So when they're doing the inspection, they wanted to deny insurance because of aluminum wire. So what I did, I found someone that had some new old stock copper wire, and I charged him, a very inexpensive rate of $30 an hour to rewire the house. It took about 12 hours total, and because the house had conduit in it. So what I did, I used the old aluminum wire to pull the new copper wire, and while I was there, I rewired the box because the breaker box was kind of messy. It had things added onto it, and it didn't look so good. So I changed all that. I got that job. Started on Monday. Started around 10 o'clock. Worked till probably 6 or so, and then I came back. What was it on Tuesday? And I finished it up. Well, the good thing is she did get the inspection, and they that was fine. The electrical's fine, but they're still hassling about the roof. They don't want the roof to be more than 15 years old because, again, in Florida, they're trying to cancel everybody's insurance. So that way they have zero risk. Insurance companies today are basically just speculators. They're speculating in stock, bond, and real estate markets. They don't want to actually have to pay anybody when they have a problem. And that's good. So Anyway, it's good for them, not for us. I don't have insurance because I think my property will be worth more money if it is destroyed because it'll save them the expense of demolition. So if a hurricane blows it down, then it'll be an empty lot. And in my neighborhood, it seems like empty lots are what everybody's goal is. Down the street, they just tore down another house because all the houses that are an acre or more, they're turning into McMansions. Now, when I was a kid, we had a combination of cow pastures, plant nurseries, fish farms, and all kinds of interesting small businesses. There were people out there. There was a plumber. There were some electricians. There were people that fix cars and whatever. But now, what they've done, they've turned it into a McMansion neighborhood, which is basically just overpriced boxes that start at 2 million and work up from there. And this is a neighborhood where the lots were about $900 to $1,000 when they were first sold in the late 50s. Okay, so let's check out some of the comments. Now, again, something went wrong with the OBS studio. I have no idea what happened. I may have to restart the stream to make it work, but I did put in the call in number and you can feel free to call if you want. I see that our first person here, let's see, looks like it was Terry Sue. Okay, excellent. Good morning. Dawn Schonger, good morning. Sandy Blythe, good morning. Lambs, hello, hello. Father of United Carnivore, good morning all from Melbourne, Florida. We have 25 people at the moment. And loud and clear, yes. Sandra McDonald, evening, yep, see you. Yes, United Carnivore, I see and hear you. Retired Rick, I see and hear you. Hello again, Rick from Yaka. I'm 11 p.m. here in Australia. Well, I won't try to keep you up too long. And remember, you can feel free to leave at any time. I'm sure there's other live streams out there that you might want to check out during mine. And like I said, I may restart this and see if I can get the OBS to work. I don't know what happened. I was so happy when it worked last week. Okay. And Jiffy is here. Good morning, Rick and everyone. Good morning. Retired Rick is here. Yes. Okay. Andy Blythe, Sandra McDonald. Okay. So Terry Kirtley. Oh, good morning from Arkansas. Well, good morning from Miami, Florida. And Sandy Blythe says, "You look handsome this morning, Rick." Well, thank you very much. The mic is very clear and can hear the phone also. Well, not too bad for relatively old. If anybody knows what kind of mic this is, I'm sure whenever you see a live stream and somebody makes an animation, this is the type of mic they always show. And I'm sure at least a handful of you will know what the model is. I guess you can tell me if you like. And let's see. Super Tune is here. The mic is very clear and can hear the phone also. Well, that's it. So when I pick up the phone, you can hear that as well. So anyone that has the courage to call in is welcome to do so, and you will be the first ever. Because when I used to do videos way back in the late 2000s, there was no such thing as a YouTube live stream, and YouTube videos were limited to 12 minutes. So what I would do, I would have someone call in, and what it was when I had my YouTube channel about scams, basically, have you been scammed by one of these free energy scams or whatever? And then what I would do, I would go ahead and say, all right, well, explain your situation, the company that you bought it from, what it was supposed to do. And then we talked about it. You had everything from the water for gas scams to try to improve mileage, which didn't work, to these zero, what do they call that? Over unity electric motors that are supposed to run themselves and run a generator. And of course, it all defies the laws of physics, not only the first law of thermodynamics, but especially the second law of thermodynamics, which is where I started talking a lot about entropy. And that's what happened. So, anyway, let's see. Okay. Good morning, all. Only 8 p.m. here in Western Australia. All right. Sandra McDonald says, I have a mic like that tattooed on my arm. Well, there you go. This is one of the most popular microphones. And this is not, I have another one that's older than this. This is from, I believe, the 80s. It's a newer style because the company that makes it still makes them. And there's actually cheap Chinese versions you can get for as little as $20 or less. I've seen them as cheap as $14 from AliExpress. But I like them. And the neat thing about them is they are nice. They're not that big. This is the small version. There was a larger version, which was the original mic. But why is that cat just keeps roaming around the yard? Hey, kitty, up. Looks like we got a phone call here. Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello. Hi, Rick. This is Annika from Texas. Hi, Rick. This is
So it does work.
Annika from Texas. Hi, Rick. So it does work. This is Annika from Texas. Oh, it just keeps. Oh, it just keeps. Oh, I keep hearing the repetition online.
Yeah, there's a delay. Hold on, let me turn this off here.
Okay, I hear you, Rick.
Okay. Yeah, what it is, there seems to be a delay.
Yeah, and it keeps repeating because I have you on my computer, but then I keep hearing the repeat on my computer, but I got you here on my phone. That's wild.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's kind of how it is. I guess we can have this real time. I don't know how good it'll be for everybody else to hear it, but it's just an experiment.
Right. And I thought, oh my God, I could be the first one to call in. I just wanted to let you know that I've been keeping track on you online since you basically got started a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited. You're doing your awesome show. You are terrific. Your knowledge is fantastic. I appreciate it. But I am an anonymous fan. I am not registered on YouTube. I don't want to appear anywhere because I don't trust these times. But you are fantastic.
Well, I'm glad. That's why I set up the call-in line, because the problem is I think a lot of people are shy. They don't want to put their face on camera. And this way, at least you can call in anonymously. It's like the old days when we had radio shows. You could call in. You don't have to say your real name. You don't have to show your image. So I thought this would be kind of nice, and you can call in any time. And I'm glad that you have been watching me, because I didn't do anything carnival related until Joey Schwartz interviewed me in August of 2022.
Yes, I remember that.
And his channel, he basically took everything down. He became, I guess, a scammer of some kind. I don't know, trying to sell the life insurance. I guess he wants to be like that valuetainment guy that scams everybody with his PHP scam. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a clown show.
Right.
Yeah, it totally goes with the sign of the times. But yeah, so I'm so glad that you picked.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think I lost you. That's interesting. Well, I guess I have lost the caller, so what I will do, I will hang up and I will switch back to the microphone. Okay. Let's see. Can you hear me? Oh, got the call back again. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask my question, which is, so everybody registers online and they appear with their name and your comments. I don't know if you can erase them, but how does everybody feel that everything is being tracked and recorded and you don't really have ownership of it? Because it seems like everybody feels safe online, but I think that's a false security.
That's a very good point. Now, what I would say in my case, I limit what I put online. I mean, obviously, I put a lot of things online, but my whole life is not online. I put out the stuff that I don't really care if it's private or not. So
True.
that's
good.
That's kind of how I do it. But yeah, I don't trust anything, because you have to realize any of these services that are free, like YouTube or pretty much any of them, you are the product.
Yeah.
What they say.
That's right.
And even if you pay for a service, these people, they're data brokers. They'll sell your information. The reason that I go out there and do what I do is because I'm sick and tired of seeing people suffer for no reason. My parents,
they suffered in their last few years of life because of misguided health information. My dad was convinced that he was healthy, and yet he ended up with heart issues and terrible infections and died at 82. My mom lived to 90, but she had cancer twice, and her life was just, really unnecessarily difficult. So I think I put myself out there just for that reason. But yeah, I wouldn't trust anything that's online. If you don't feel comfortable sharing it with the world, I wouldn't put it out there because even if they say it's
Yes,
private.
very true, because the deception and the vindictiveness carries itself out in small versions all the way up to the cosmic version. But I also wanted to say that a similar thing happened to my parents. I'm from the Netherlands originally, and that's where that happened. So this is happening worldwide, the
Hmm.
whole health issue item.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah,
the
they
thing,
shorten people's
and
lifespan.
there's really I didn't realize it until I discovered the carnivore community. Now I've been eating this way since I was a teenager, but I didn't know that this existed until, believe it or not, when I was taking care of my mom, because I usually am too busy working. I didn't go online much, and I was off YouTube for almost, I guess, 10 years when YouTube deleted my videos. And even to this day, they delete certain comments. If I make comments about how the financial system works, the central bankers, the corruption, and all that, they delete that because I guess they
Right.
don't want that out there. So,
Right. I didn't even know there was such a thing as anything online until 2020 when everything shut down. And I was like, well, what can we do now? So
hmm
I was too busy working, too busy. It failed miserably. I could tell everything was collapsing. But
hmm
then I started to study up since 2020. But that's when I discovered there was YouTube, Rumble, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where have I been?
exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the thing is, YouTube for a long time it was mostly like younger people. They had older people on there too, but a lot of the most popular YouTubers were actually game players. They would sit at their computer and they play a game and they talk about different things. And then you have these other YouTubers out there. This crazy cat keeps walking around my yard. Um, they would go there and then they would give prizes and they'd have these sweepstakes and whatever, and they became popular. So it turned into sort of, I guess, a cult following. But then, like you said, when everybody was stuck at home because of the pandemic and they had nothing else to do, they started going on there. And then that's what I did. I started discovering all these people. I think the first person I ever discovered promoting the carnivore diet was Dr. Paul Saladino. And there was another guy, his name was Butter Bob Briggs, which I think he just went
Yeah,
off of YouTube.
I noticed him too. Well, everything seems to be a kind of like a Fibonacci. What do they call that? Like a pattern, and everything seems to get out of control after it first starts. I had a few YouTube videos on for horse sales that I have been doing for a long time, but I noticed everything goes faster and faster and goes down the tubes. So, when websites first came out, I was part of that. It was going great.
Hmm.
But then the technology seems to just go out of control faster and faster, bigger and bigger. And everybody who was in there from the ground level just gets obliterated. Like right now, I'm like,
Hmm.
wow,
Right.
how do you even keep up with it? You have to go your own separate path.
That's right. That's what I've always done. And that's why I'm not popular. I'm not on the in crowd. You don't see me being invited to very many of the live streams. It's just a select group of people that are like-minded. But you don't see me in the meetups or any of the documentaries or any of this other stuff. I'm not. Let's put it this way. I don't fit the narrative. So if people do what
Yeah,
I
that's
do,
good. Keep it that way.
right?
That's your strength. It's fantastic.
Because the thing is, if this whole thing, if the government decides to shut it down, which they probably will eventually, all the popular
Yeah.
people will disappear. They'll be a target, and meanwhile, I'll still be here, probably doing my same thing that I've always done. So that's because I basically started this decades ago, and it was not. It's not an idea that I got from somebody else. It's something I came up with, and I do stuff like that all the time because when I look at the world,
Yeah.
I see the world as a combination of producers and consumers. And everyone is a little bit of both. In order to survive, you have to be a consumer, but then you have to be a producer to be able to establish your value with the community. The problem is that
Yes.
certain people, they become just consumers and they produce very little. And I call those parasites. And that includes most of the wealthy. Most of the wealthy people that people look up to are actually parasites. And what people don't realize is without us, they can't exist. But we can exist
Yeah, and
without
they
them.
always try to get us out of that balance.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, we got to not get distracted, which is what they're always trying to do. And then you're out of the game, of your own game.
That is exactly right. The distraction, I tell people distraction leads to destruction, because if you're not paying attention to what's going on, that's like you're driving down the road and there's a train coming and you don't see the lights, you don't see the gates go down, you just drive on the track and then bam, you get hit and that's it. That's what it is. It's like having a picnic. I tell them it's like having a picnic on the railroad track. You can feel the rumbling, you start hearing the whistle, and you just sit there on the track. You go, well, everything's fine. It's been fine up to this point. And the sound gets louder and louder. It's like, come on, get off of the track. No, I'm comfortable. And then next thing you know, bam, and that's it.
No, you have to always stay alert. You can't get too comfortable, and you have to stay focused on survival. And the bad part and the good part is, yes, we can totally survive and thrive in this world, but we're constantly under attack from these parasites. We're the only animal that needs to pay to live here.
Right. Well, that's it. And the thing is, they used to have slaves, but now they have virtual slaves. They use debt. Debt is their tool. Debt is what gives them money, and debt is what gives them control. And that's why every nation has debt. There is no debt-free nation on the earth, and there are very few debt-free people. I mean, I consider myself debt-free, but I still have to pay a property tax every year to rent the house that I'm living in. They don't let you own that. So when it comes down to it, it's all about extraction. Again, people like us don't need to extract. If we're a productive person, we can voluntarily trade. And voluntarily trading, it benefits both. But when you have to extract from somebody, you have to use force to force the person to give you. That's what taxation or violence or any of these things. And that is a shame, because that's not the way we were made, If you believe in God.
And the more we realize how powerful we are in that, and to go our own way and to not get distracted, to be observant but not stay in our own power, then we can keep moving forward. But we have to change our whole view of what we've been told all our lives. It's amazing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they've indoctrinated. I mean, you think about it, from the moment that kids are conscious enough and aware, they put them in a school, and then they indoctrinate them all day with these ideas. Plus, you have the media, the television, now you have the internet. You have all these ways of convincing people. It's just like advertising. Now, I was one of the few people that was not swayed by advertising. To this day, you can show me all the ads you want. When I go on YouTube, I don't have an ad blocker. I don't care. I find them entertaining. But I've never purchased anything based on an ad. I tend to go by real things. I go by the laws of physics, basically, and I examine everything that way. And I tell people it's easier to go with your emotions, but it's dangerous. If you live by your emotions, you will have a major problem eventually.
Well, I feel, or I found that when you analyze your life, whenever things went right, you went with your instincts, your innate knowledge, and whenever things went wrong, you went with what society put up on you.
Right.
And I just pray there's a way out, and that we can hang on to our little dinghies here on the wild ocean until this passes.
Well, again, if you believe in God, you know that the Bible does say that Satan is the ruler of the world, and that's something we have to deal with. And the problem is that even within religious organizations, there's a lot of corruption, nepotism, and it's just human nature is to get something for nothing. So if a person is put in a position of power or as an authority on a subject, they're going to take advantage of that. And this is what I don't want to see happen in the carnivore community. When I start seeing these people with their following, their groups, their clubs, and so on, it bothers me, because I can see where this is going. It's turning into a cult. You don't want to be part of a cult.
Yeah, we need to see that nothing is for nothing, and you have to put value back in. But we can all have that if we believe in not taking advantage of other people and sticking with that core belief. But yes, this is a hell realm. It's absolutely amazing. And it's amazing to see how so many people still believe that there's the savior out there in this world, in a system that people created. I basically reset my whole life. There's barely anyone left from my old group of friends. You have to go your own way.
Right.
and be okay with that.
Right. Well, the other thing too is that in order to survive, human beings have to be part of a group because it's like a tree. A tree cannot survive on its own. It has to have the soil, the bacteria, the animals, and everything working with it because otherwise the insects would attack it. If the tree is being attacked by insects, it has to use toxic chemicals to kill it. But if it had a colony of birds, let's say there was a bird's nest in the tree, and here comes the caterpillars to eat the tree, well, the birds will eat the caterpillars and the tree is fine. So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. When you have one animal in one species, if that animal dies, this goes extinct. But if you have a very
Right, but it is very important who you hang out with, and it's better
right,
to start over or be alone for a while and
right,
then find the right people. Kind of like that organism in Utah they call the trembling giants, those trees at Fish Lake.
hmm
I just came across it the other day, and I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah, it's
hmm
one tree, but it's all these different shoots, and it's supposedly 80,000 years old. But yeah, you have to become your own community and attract the people that go with it.
right. And again, it all goes back to that principle in physics called entropy. Everything tends towards greater disorder. The only way that you can oppose
Yeah,
that
bummer.
is by putting more effort. It's like a tree. A tree, a leaf only lives so long. So the tree just produces more of them. And that way the tree can continue to grow and it doesn't just die. Now, if you take the sunlight away, you take the water away from any plant, and anyone that's grown houseplants knows this, if you don't keep giving it sunlight and water, it dies. So once the
Yeah,
plant is no longer alive, it begins to decompose. And that's the way the whole world works. That's the concept of entropy. And no one else
yep.
talks
It's
about that.
we've got to find that balance always.
Right. That's it. But that's
Well,
good.
you're a light in this community. I'm so glad. It's amazing what you do, and I'm glad Mitch is back,
Yes.
and that he exposes some light
And
because of what happened to him. That he can give light to the problem in our hospitals, which is really the reason why my parents ended up dying sooner than they should
hmm
have.
well,
And
this is the thing. You notice that when Mitch had his stroke, if you notice my comments, what I was saying, I predicted that within a month he would be back online. And my prediction was right
yeah,
because I know the type. There's actually, as strange as it may seem, he's similar to me in some ways. That's why I have a lot of
yeah,
respect
I've
for his
seen
channel.
that. Yeah, he was kind of drifting off to the dark side, but he's back.
Well, that's what I was, and I mentioned that too, that something must be wrong with him because he was starting to get a little strange. But, you know, you're talking about someone, he's got a lot of experience, and he definitely wants to share it with others. And you know what? This
Yes.
stroke thing is going to be a good thing in the long run because it put him into the hospital system again. And then that way he can kind of see how things have changed or not changed. Because, he had that surgery before and he's had a lot of experience. I can't really tell you because I've never been a patient in a hospital. My only experience has been taking care of my parents, which was really kind of
Right.
difficult. But
Yeah, yeah. That's what. Thankfully, I've never been on medications. I've always stayed out of the hospital. I've never gone to a doctor because they always freak me out. But 2020 is what woke me up. When they came with that disease, I'm like, there is no way, and that woke me up, and that put me even further on the path of we have to stay out of the hospital, stay away from doctors and hospitals.
hmm
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's interesting because at the same moment when my mom was dying, that's when the disease came up. So mom had just gotten out of the hospital, and then after that, it was like, no, I'm not taking her anywhere near a hospital because other people I knew that had relatives in the hospital, they couldn't even see them. And my mom would never have lived if she didn't have the personal attention that I gave her. So in my case,
Right.
I actually got sick after this. After my mom had died, I actually got COVID, believe it or not, and I lost my sense of smell and taste and all that.
Well, you were worn out.
I was exactly. Now there was no vaccine back then, but when the vaccine came
Thank
out, everybody
God.
was pushing it. You have to take it. I said, why am I going to take it? I've already had COVID. I had all the symptoms and I recovered. I'm not going to take it. And I got it two more times after that, and every time I got it, it was less and less. It was like the first time was the worst, and the second and third, I said, this is any virus that spreads easily has a decreasing mortality. In other words, the viruses that kill most people, that's like a one-time thing because after you've killed enough people, the virus dies out. But a virus that is very
Right, because your
contagious.
system got weakened and let in the toxins of whatever is out there. I don't even believe in viruses, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really opened my eyes to the whole system. Oh, stay away from it.
Hmm. Right. But yeah, but see, that's the thing. And now a hospital or doctor is good if you break your arm or you have an acute emergency. They can save your life. You
Right.
get in a car accident, or and I still believe that certain vaccines are good, that they're actually beneficial. But to give people large amounts of vaccines, I think, is a mistake because your immune system gets overwhelmed. It may become dysfunctional, and then who knows what will happen. So it'd be better
Yeah,
just.
again, going back to the balance within yourself
Hmm.
and then go back to homeopathy and the old ways. Yeah.
Right. That's it.
But yeah, but it's amazing. And again, it went from large to small. I mean, it was scary to stand your ground. I still remember, and I live in the countryside, but I
Hmm.
would go to town, and people would attack me for not wearing a mask. I mean, I would just smile, but inside I was trembling. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to wear a mask, and I'm not going to take a swab, and I'm not going to take a shot. But
Hmm.
people were just, it's sorcery. They were just under a spell. And now they think it's all gone. No, it's still there,
Hmm.
just in a different form. We have to stay alert.
Right. Well, they'll come up with some other disaster so they can print more money and inflate like they always do. It's either a
Oh, they
war.
already are.
It's
Look at all the wars going on. It keeps going.
well, that's it. It's either disease or war. It has to be something to scare people. Maybe they'll scare people with
Yeah,
EMP or aliens or something. They always have to find some way to get the fear going because there's two ways to motivate any living thing. You can motivate them with a reward or with fear. And the thing is, if you use a reward, it takes more effort because you have to give something that people want. So it's easier to use fear. If you can use fear and get people scared, you can get them to move very quickly rather than trying to give them a reward and say, well, if you do this and that, you'll be healthy and strong. They're not going to, it's harder to control somebody with that. Plus, then you have to give them real food and material resources. And we know that the people at the top, they want everything for themselves. They love to have
right.
everybody poor and then they can show off. See, they can't do it on their own because if there were no poor people, they'd have to show off to each other and eventually they would just eat each other and they would basically kill each other. So they need to have a lot of poor people around so that way they could, feel good because that's what they are. They're basically insecure and they use what the resources they have to make themselves above everybody else. I think that's what really gets them going because it's not the money, it's more like the power and influence.
Yeah, yeah. It starts right at childhood, all your life. When you look back, it's amazing.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I've always been kind of a loner, so I stayed out of a lot of things. But I never understood this realm. It just now I know why I never understood it.
Mhm.
It's terrifying.
Right.
But this your channel is truly a light, and I want to thank you for that and keep up the good work. And everybody keep eating clean, keep eating single ingredients.
There you go. And you don't even have to be a carnivore. Some people thrive just fine eating some plant material. Single ingredients is the
Right.
key, as natural as possible. Keep your stress down and try to, if you can understand how the world works, it can really reduce your stress because you can see the danger before it's coming. The worst thing is like when let's say that you're in a house and you're in Tornado Alley, you never know when the tornado is going to come up. But when you have a hurricane coming, you can prepare and you can be ready. And I think understanding how the world works, how the financial system works, how the medical and everything works, it can really help you.
Yeah, yeah, and let go of your ego. Don't let people tell you what to do or you have to be a certain way or look a certain way. No, just be your authentic self.
Mhm.
Stay relaxed no matter what,
Mhm.
and
Right.
observe and study. Yeah, and
That's it.
prepare.
That's it. That's great. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you called
And
in.
yeah, and you know what? I am so thankful that because I grew up in Europe, I still remember the days that we were recovering. I'm 56 now, so I
No,
got
same
that
age as
last
me.
bit of the recovering from the war. I mean, how stupid is war?
Mhm.
That we believed in it and that we honor everybody who fought in it and that I mean, people we need to stand up to war. It's nothing glamorous and it isn't
Right.
even necessary.
That is
Yeah.
right.
So I
Well,
went through the economic hardships in the beginning when I was little.
Hmm.
And then you get lulled into, no, it's only going to get better. And I always wondered, like, what are you talking about? This realm makes no sense. No, you've got it so good, you have no idea, and it's only going to keep getting better. I'm like, well, I don't see it, and
Hmm.
here we are.
Right. That's it. But that's the thing, war is basically another way to increase debt. And you have to realize that the central bankers, the people that are at the top, they extract through the use of debt. So it's very important that you don't go into debt yourself and don't believe their nonsense. Like I said, the wars, basically they start a war, they blow everything up, they kill a bunch of people, and then now they have to go into debt to rebuild, and then it takes time to get more people. Or they could just bring people from somewhere else in the world and then use them, because that's what it is basically extraction. You want to extract. It's like they criticize keeping cattle, but at least when you keep cattle, you protect them and you feed them. With these people, it's like it talks about, I forget what the scripture is, that they're sheared and thrown about like a sheep without a shepherd. They're just taking what they can and they throw them on the side of the road. The people go to war, they
Yeah,
use
and
them.
you can see that by people needlessly dying. There
Right.
are real victims, in spite of everything, in spite of all the hoaxes and everything. They're still real victims, and
Hmm.
that's because they are the way they are.
That's right. Well, they don't care because they see the only
No,
thing they
they
care
don't.
about is themselves, their families, and the people they associate with. Everyone else to them is meaningless. So if you're not one of them, they don't care. They don't care what happens to you. And look at these people that fight wars. They go mentally off. They end up on the street. They don't care about them. They've already used them up. They throw them away, and that's it. They'll get somebody else to do their bidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We got to all come out of the fear, and anybody who doesn't see it yet, they're in for a surprise. And
Hmm.
thankfully, I went through that during the COVID years. That's when I went through all the fear processing, and then you can carry on with life, but differently. It will never be the same, and
Right.
it will not be what they told you. But
Right.
you can still find a good life without all the supposed perks.
Right. That's right. I agree.
So I just want to wish everybody, because I'm not going to hog your time. I want to wish everybody much health, because if we don't have health, we really don't have much of anything.
Right.
And to stay balanced and take it from there, because everybody's situation is different. So we
Hmm.
can't judge that, but hang on to whatever health you have and the good people in your life.
That's it. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rick.
Thank you for calling in, and we'll see who else calls in. Thank you for taking the courage. And again, I'm glad that we have this format. You can remain anonymous, but
Yeah.
we can all appreciate your wisdom.
Fantastic. All right. I will hang up now and watch the show.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see. That was great. And this is what I'm trying to do. Now, you have to realize that I don't have the most subscribers. I don't have the most popular channel, but I have the best. So, this is quality over quantity. And I think a lot of us that are in this carnivore space, we're awakened on many levels because we know that the system doesn't exist for our benefit, it exists for extraction. That's the whole idea. Oh, let's see. Do I have another call? Hmm. Oh, all right. That was just the phone. I deliberately left Milton out of here because if I bring him in here, he will jump on the mixer, he will jump on the computer, and he will knock me offline almost as sure as I'll just be overloaded with cuteness because I love my cat. A lot of people don't understand that, but I do love my cat. So let's go over here. Let's hit the comments. Again, I don't know why the OBS didn't work today. I'm going to have to probably restart. But on the comments, it says Sandy Blythe says it's so. Oh, look at this. Jerry Hall, Junior Rogan. I love it. Well, there you go. I'll have to make myself a neon sign like he made. Now, the thing is that I can actually do that myself. I'll have to put, Rick's Quackers or something like that. But anyway, it's so fun to watch and listen. Yes, good morning from Terry Sue. And I see Thomas, Target Prime Rib is here. And hello, Rick. Well, hello, Tom. Sandy Blythe, Super Tune, Super Tune. Okay. The older I get, I don't like a lot of change. except my coin changed. There you go. And biodynamics. Okay, that's a term that's used for that. Good morning. That sounds like Tina. Okay. Now, Sandy Blythe has a good point here. Says that Mitch was off for a couple of weeks before his stroke. He was angry. I was like, whoa. Yeah, that was uncharacteristic. And one thing I've noticed is that when people have health issues, you will see a change in their personality. That's what happened to my dad when he used to have issues. He'd be nice for days and then kind of blow up. I think a lot of it was related to blood sugar. My mom would do the same thing. That was the one thing I never understood about my parents, although they were supposed to be so healthy. They would get upset for no reason. And then other times, that was fine. Okay. So Mitch had a dark area. Okay. Hi, Rick. Hi, everyone. Okay. 15 up to 37 in the chat. I got 34 now. I must have scared a few of them out. All right, let's see. Good morning from the UK, Rick. Okay. Ribeye Rob, good morning from Miami. Milton is a cute baby. Yes, he is. Let's see. E videos appearing real. Yeah, false videos appearing real. That's right. And Annabella the Happy Carnivore says, how are the duckies? Well, the duckies are missing in action. They've been hanging out at the canal. But hey, what can you do, right? I do the best I can. So if I can move this a little bit here. All right. Got some monitor issues. Okay. Oops. That's a little bit better, I think. Well, anyway, before I had the call, let's see who else we have. We have Annabella. All right. We know how much you love Milton. We love him too. Yeah, he's a cute little kitty. Cindy DeManchi, there she is. Good morning, Rick, and everyone in the chat. Good morning. And let's see. We love and appreciate you, Rick. Thanks for what you do. Well, thank you for being here. Good morning, Ribeye Rob. And I feel a lot of people on a sad diet are unstable because of sugar, seed oils, food colorings, and flavoring. Yes, I agree with that. That's okay, Cindy. Well, anyway, speaking of healthy and unhealthy, I have to admit that I was working Monday and Tuesday rewiring a house for someone I know. But on Tuesday, after I finished work, I just wasn't feeling 100%. I was a little bit tired. I went into my living room and I fell asleep. Well, Wednesday, I woke up with a headache and my nose was bothering me more than usual. And I started a lot of sneezing. So I figured, okay, I've gotten some kind of cold. And then it kind of came and went. And I went to the store. I rode the old bike down to Winn-Dixie and Aldi and a couple other stores. Move this a little bit here. All right. Mic noise there. Anyway, so, but, on Wednesday night when I went to sleep, my stomach wasn't 100% right. I ate pretty normal, but I felt a little bit more full than usual. And then Wednesday night, when I got up around 3 o'clock to take a leak, I ended up having to go to the bathroom and I had diarrhea. And I had diarrhea 2 more times that night. And then during the day on Thursday, I had diarrhea at least 4 or 5 times. And then yesterday, Friday, I had it in the morning. Now, what that is, that's my 3 times a year flu. So I got the flu, but I didn't have really, other than feeling tired and not feeling 100%, I was still able to do a lot of things. And I felt pretty good. And then as of Friday, I felt back to normal. So I had to do a job in the morning and I got that done. But, this morning I went to the bathroom and it was pretty much normal. So I think whatever it was has worked its way out of my system. There is this strange, I wouldn't call it a lie, but I would call it an idea, which I don't believe. And that is that when you're on the carnivore diet, you never get sick. And I do not believe that 100% because I've always gotten the flu about 3 times a year. I call it my flu shot. So the reason I don't bother to go to try to get a flu shot anywhere is because I usually get the flu either before everybody else or after everybody else. It's never at the same time that everybody has it. So I've worked that out of my system, and now what I'm going to do, I just cut back. I take it easy. Thankfully, there hasn't been much work, and I'll do a few things around the house. I have things to do around the yard and inside. Part of it was probably because I was taking on the storage room and there was a lot of mold and mildew in the old books. I threw out 3 garbage cans loads of stuff, and I think in some ways that's what it was. But then again, it's just normal. It's normal for a person to get sick now and then, which is fine. I mean, what are you going to do? There's no way around that. Okay. Now, again, thank you for our anonymous caller who called in earlier, who was the very first on the Live at 8 with Rick live stream to have a live call. No one has ever done a live call before. All the call-ins I had before that were recorded. Now, eventually, when I get set up for it and I'm able to edit videos the way I would like to, I'm going to try to do some interviews now. Everybody has been interviewed, I believe, by everybody else. I've been interviewed by a lot of people myself. In fact, I was going to set up a database to show how many interviews I've been on. So we'll see. Let's check out the comments here. Annabelle, I feel pretty good at the moment. Had a massive meal. Helps. I'm eating lots of fat. It helps so much. Bugs suck. Yes, they do. That's good to hear. Fat is awesome. And Cindy says, Tanya, it's early. My only excuse. All right. And high fat is helping me lose a ton. Good. I'm not weighing myself. The scale goes up, but my clothes get looser. Now, I have a friend of mine that I've known for several years. He's actually starting the carnivore diet, and he says his weight has not changed, but his clothes are getting looser. And I said, that's good, because if that's happening, you're probably eliminating stored water, and you may even be building muscle. I said it's better to go by how you look and how you feel than how much you weigh. Because what is weight anyway? It's just a force of gravity acting on mass. And there's nothing wrong with having more mass as long as it's not just a bunch of fat. So that's good. Okay, Booby Goats Erin is here. And she says, good morning, everybody. Well, good morning from the Quack Zone. And again, I don't know. The comment should be pinned at the top. So I did put in the call-in number if anybody wants to call in. Now, for some reason, my OBS didn't work. So what I may do in a bit, I may shut down the stream and then try to restart it with a different link and see why the OBS didn't work. Again, this is still a work in progress. It said that YouTube was not recognizing the stream, so it might have been something with authentication. It's possible. Who knows? But anyway, it's up to you if you wish to participate. And again, you can still see the comments on the right side of your video in most cases. And that's it. Okay. How do you make the chat scroll on the screen? Well, the chat should be on the right side if you have it enabled. There's also a pop-out chat that you can click where the 3 dots is. You can pop out the chat and then you can have it in a separate window. And that also works. I can do that now. And if I do it on mine, let me see. You can't see it because I'm not. Okay. Yeah, see, I can do that as well. Okay. And then you can just select it. I'm going to try to restart this. Maybe. Okay, cool. Thanks, Rick. Well, thank you. I'm glad I can help. Now, one of the most important things that I keep telling people if you're going to start this diet, you need to understand why you're doing it. Are you doing it just to be part of a trend, or are you doing it for yourself? If you're doing it for yourself, it's going to be a lot easier to stick to it than if you're just doing it to be in a crowd of other people. And I think what's going to happen, especially with the changes that you've seen in the world today, there will be a trend towards the carnivore, keto, or even paleo diet, because I believe a lot of people are realizing that the duck food diet is not working. Now, speaking of, let's say, natural eating, my vegan friend told me that one of the channels that she likes to watch, the guy was like 64 and he died of a heart attack, I think is what it was. And I think it was called Mango Mongo or something like that. And again, I did pull up the website earlier in the week when she told me about it, but some kind of guy that was a fruitarian, and he was always making videos about the fruitarian diet, how good it was for diabetes and how good it was for your heart. But the reality was, and I see on his videos that he must have died of a heart attack. So that's kind of strange. So again, Rick's heart attack diet is a fraud because now he was 64, so I'll be 58 this summer, so I got another 7 years or whatever to go. And then that way, if I die of a heart attack, then the vegans can say, well, Rick killed himself 45 or 46 or whatever amount of years it is on the carnivore diet. So, but what I've noticed about vegans and fruitarians is a lot of them are skinny, just like I am. I mean, I don't have, the muscles that these Sean Baker or Anthony Chafee or most of the carnivore doctors, they're all nicely built. But the thing is, when I look at myself compared to the vegans, there's something I noticed about vegans that I don't understand. First of all vegans tend to look ratty. They don't comb their hair. If they're a guy, they tend to grow facial hair that's really unkept. They tend to wear ratty clothes. Now, I wear ratty clothes too when I'm working. But if I'm going to make a YouTube video, I'm going to dress halfway decent. I mean, my pants, there's no stains on them. There's no holes. My shirt, I try to wear clean clothes. There's a certain presentation that I try to make. But when you see these vegans, they look like homeless people. And a lot of them, they can't speak clearly for a extended period of time. They seem to be quite lost. So, I mean, what can you do, right? But anyway, well, retired Rick here has some blood work specs over there and HDL, and of course that's a European measurement. So triglycerides 123, waiting to hear from my doctor. Are these good or bad? All right. So again, that's why they have the medical YouTube channels where you can go there and look. I mean, a lot of people, they swear by Dr. Barry, and you have Dr. Baker. He doesn't interact as much, but Dr. Chafee interacts quite a bit. Again, with all these doctors, you need to do super chat, but it's hard to say. Okay. Now look what else we have here. You have the old blood work to compare it. That's a good point. Okay. Make chat on screen. All right. Sandy Blythe says, I'm so thankful I found carnivore. It's truly changing my life almost 5 months in. Well, that's great. Another success story. My vegetarian chiropractor who was 50 dropped dead of a heart attack. He was against keto. I never told him I was carnivore. That was my first time being carnivore. This is my second time going carnivore. Well, there you go. 50 years old, vegetarian, dropped dead of a heart attack. That's scary. I don't know if he was in good shape, but, and anybody could have a heart attack. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just on my diet, I call it the heart attack diet because it's part of comedy. And I think in many ways, maintaining sort of a sense of humor, I think can go a long way. Even if your life is not perfect diet-wise, even if you're eating roadkill and you're eating marked down meat and you're eating out of a dumpster, I think a lot of times you can extend your life just by reducing your stress. And again, I'm looking for pictures that a friend of mine took of me. When I was taking care of my mom, I actually developed a lot more body fat than I normally have. And when I looked at a picture of myself, I was kind of shocked at how I changed. And remember, my diet never changed. I kept eating the same food that I always ate. All I changed was the amount of stress I was under. And then having to babysit my mom while she rehabilitated in the nursing home, and then going to the hospital, making sure they didn't make medical mistakes, which they almost did a couple of times. So it was really difficult, and it was very stressful. So that's the thing. Now, again, I spend a lot of time outside, except when I'm here, and I believe that's important. I believe being around the plants and animals and all those things can really make a difference in your life. So that's really important. Okay, let's see. Oh, good. Sandy Blythe says, I bought some wings yesterday to make heart attack chicken wings. Yummy. I agree. Self-care is very important. I do a lot of craft to help me with stress. I gained a lot when my dad was dying. I feel it was a stress. It definitely was. And again, I didn't gain any weight that I could see, but my body composition changed. And this is really odd because as skinny as I am, I generally weigh between 190 and 200 pounds, which is thin for somebody who's 6'6". But my weight never has been over 200, really, maybe 205 maximum. When I looked heavier, I was actually like 198. So I think what was happening is I was just storing a lot of fat and losing muscle mass or some other mass. So that's, again, if I can find that image. Now, I actually found a really interesting image, and I wanted to put this up on the, um, the OBS, but it didn't work. Again, I may retry it, but let me get it just out of the scanner over here. You'll find this kind of interesting. I was going through some of this stuff. My mom was an extreme hoarder when it came to keeping things. She had a lot of papers from when she was a school teacher. Now everybody tells me just throw everything out, but I don't throw anything out. I go through it one by one, every single paper, and I find stuff that's interesting. Well, I found this. Now, I'll give you a hint. That lady in the picture is my mom. But look at that little baby. You probably know exactly who that is. Yes, this is me. This is a picture from 1968, and you can see my parents, they have, I guess that was the Valiant, and over there was a Volkswagen bus. This is in the same house that I'm in now, but you can see the house was only about 8 years old back then, so everything was still kind of original. And that's back when the neighbors had a tree across the street. So, and I have other pictures. I have a lot. My parents took a lot of pictures of me when I was a little kid. And I think it was because they tried to get pregnant for like 10 years before I was born. I was actually a surprise. My mom didn't know she was pregnant until several months into it. So when I was born at Doctor's Hospital, I was sort of, I guess, the latest and greatest around here. But it's interesting when you see it because, you know, you can definitely tell the time period, how long ago that was. Okay, let's see. He was a lovely man. He walked a lot. He was very loved. I bought some wings yesterday to make heart attack chicken wings. Well, that's great. And you're going to love it because they are delicious when they're fried in beef tallow. Self-care is very important. I do a lot of craft to help me with stress. I gained a lot when my dad was dying. I feel like it was a stress. Do you save your chicken bones, Rick? I like to make chicken bone broth. I don't really save them. I do boil them at times, but when I'm done with them, I put them into a bucket and I burn them when I burn the yard trash. So, let me see here. Are you a practicing stoic? I don't know because I don't really practice anything except the heart attack diet. I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Maybe I have some of the characteristics of it. And Sandy Blythe says, how much did you weigh at birth? I don't know. And again, I have the birth certificate somewhere around here. And I do have, my mom saved everything. So I'm sure I have all of the medical records from back then. So, you know, that's something that I will, when I find it, I'll share it. And again, this is a very cluttered house with a lot of things put in different places. My mom and I differed in one main way. We're both collectors. We both have a lot of stuff. But what I tend to do, I tend to organize things by category. And I love having lists. So I have rooms that are packed with stuff. I mean, packed where you can't even get to it because my house is small. But I have everything on a list. I used to write them on these notepads, but now it's all in a computer database. And I actually use barcode scanners. I put barcodes and things on there. And, you know, it's interesting because I have a lot of things. When I go to move, with the amount of stuff that I have, it seems like a major effort, but it won't be. Because once I know where I'm moving to, it's only going to come down to having enough money for the fuel and making sure that my truck and van are running. I may even have to buy a semi truck, load it all up, and have a truck move it to my new place. But everything will be inventoried. It will all be put on pallets. It'll all be moved with the Bobcat or forklift or whatever I have. So it won't be too hard to move all the stuff. But having everything, and I know what I have, that's the beauty of it. Now, I've had to clean out a lot of hoarder houses. And let me tell you, 90% of the stuff these people have, they don't know they have it until they see it. If you ever have a job where you have to clean out a house with the hoarder in place, nothing will ever be done. Because when you try to help them, you know what ends up happening? They just, no, I want to keep this. I want to keep this, whatever. The best way to clean a hoarder house is to do it when they're in the rehabilitation, the nursing home, in the hospital, or whatever. That's usually when I get called. Family calls me up, you know, their parents or other relative is in the hospital. Then they have to deal with the social worker. The social worker looks at the house, doesn't want them to come home because they say it's not safe. And then they're like, well, I don't want my mother or father or whatever living in a nursing home. So they call me, say, Rick, how much will you charge to clean it up? I open the door and it's usually a house of horrors. Again, my house is cluttered, but it doesn't smell bad. There are no rodents. And I'll tell you one thing, with Milton around, if a rodent ever got in here, it doesn't have a chance. This cat kills cockroaches. And a lot of people, they say, well, I got to do something. And they get overwhelmed. They say, well, there's nothing I can do. It's better just to put her in a nursing home. But no, most people won't last very long in a nursing home. So what I do, I go in there and then I have to take everything and start going through it. And a lot of times I'll find books and I'll find magazines and stuff that are really old. Anything that's in good shape, I'll keep it and I'll try to put it on shelves or whatever. Some of the stuff I'll keep myself because it's vintage and I don't want to throw it away. But anything that's been damaged by a leaky roof, rodents, or roaches or whatever, termites, a lot of these places are loaded with termites, I'll throw all that out. And what I find is that most hoarder houses, at least 80% of the stuff is completely unusable. And then only a small amount of it actually survives. It's basically just like an indoor landfill. So I'll go ahead and do that. When the person comes home, every single time, without exception, you would expect them to be upset because the house was cleaned up. But it's not like that at all. They go inside and they look around. The one lady, I cleaned up her house. She was so happy. She says, oh, wow. And it's like she went back in time and then she was asking her daughter about, oh, how was it in school or something like that? And her daughter was like 30 something. She's like, what? Because when she saw some of the old, there was an old photo album from high school that I found and I put it on the coffee table. And again, I threw out most of what was in the house, but there was enough there that was still good. I mean, most of the furniture had termites. So what I did, if it was still relatively stable, I injected it with a mixture of boric acid and antifreeze to kill the termites. And that was probably, by the time I was done, it was like $1,800, $2,000 job. I had to haul off a lot of garbage, had to do a lot of repairs. Half the lights didn't even work because the light switches had corroded. There was so much junk in the house. And the thing was, at one time the roof had leaked. Thankfully, the lady did have money, so she had a roofer replace the roof. But the problem was, even though the roof was new, none of the stuff had ever been moved. So where the roof leaked, all the books and everything had rotted, and it was all mildew. There was a rat's nest, and it was terrible. I had so much cleaning to do. The yard was a disaster. My yard is cluttered too, but I clean it every now and then. That yard had never been cleaned. There were leaves piled up, there were branches, bushes. It was just unbelievable. But what I did, got it all cleaned out. And, it really was not that big of a deal. Towards the end, though, the details were a bit of a problem. And I did some painting and excuse me. But yeah, it was kind of interesting because to see somebody that was living basically in a landfill And then so many boxes. And I mean, it's like you go through it. One house that I cleaned out, somebody must have been a chain smoker. And what it was, she was alive. She didn't smoke, but her husband was a chain smoker. So there was like cigarette butts and cartons. And I found cartons from Lucky Strike that were probably from the 60s. Now, this was back in the 90s that I cleaned that house up. So 30 years, these things were sitting there and everything was piled on top. The pile went through the house about halfway up. There was a trail. The front door was no longer accessible. The back door was the only way in and out. And she was living, believe it or not, on a cot next to the kitchen. Well, the kitchen was completely full. The refrigerator hadn't been open for at least 20 years. I don't know what she was eating. She was living in a cot in the garage, and the entire house was cluttered to the max. And that was a major job. That was just about the time that I had my first bobcat. I started cleaning the house, and it was like, I can't deal with this. It was just too much. So what I did, I took out the sliding doors, and I figured out a way to clean the house quickly. I got a large rope, and I put it around the stuff. I hooked it to the bobcat and just pulled it out of there. And I kept doing that. I would rope around one, pull it out of there. The pile that was outside was incredible. I had an enormous pile. I mean, I kept scooping it up with a bobcat. It was a decent sized yard. It was in this area, but it was one of the older homes. So it wasn't your typical 75 by 100 lot. It was like maybe 3/4 of an acre. And it was all overgrown. There was junk everywhere. But the interesting thing was, I guess because the house was built so well, it had that sort of barrel tile roof, and the roof was not leaking. That was the amazing thing. But it's just, it was so full of junk. And then the rodents got in there, the roaches got in there, and the roach situation was incredible. I found the remains of dead cats, a dead dog. I guess what happened was as the pets starved, they just died. I mean, it was a total disaster. But after we cleaned it up, believe it or not, she was able to come back home. And again, it was another family that had money. So they had a full time assistant come after that. And I think she lived another, let's see, Hurricane Andrew came and went. The house was barely damaged. I had to go over there to clean up the trees. She probably lived till 96, 97. I think somewhere around there. I know I was busy with my business when I heard that she had died. So she lived another 8 or 9 years in that house, which was kind of interesting. But it was so bad. That was probably the worst I've ever dealt with. But I did find a way to clean it. And again, I used the bobcat. Otherwise, there was no way I was going to handle all that stuff. And thankfully, they had that large sliding door. The sliding door on this house was like 3 panels. It had to be a good 10 or 12 feet wide. So it made the job a lot easier. Also, there was jalousie windows in the house, so I was able to take the glass out and just started throwing stuff out into the yard. That's how I did it. I had a mask on and a large shovel, and I just kept throwing it. I did the entire place by myself. It took like 3 weeks or more, but I did get paid for it, and that was good. And again, as a college student that needed money, it worked out quite well. But I've done several of these hoarders. I've also done business cleanouts, office cleanouts. So a lot of people say, why is your house so cluttered? Well, you have to realize I save anything that's good. Now, I throw out at least 98% of what I pick up. So it's not like I'm saving everything. And if you look around my house, you'll see stuff everywhere. But there is a certain order to it. And I tend to save only the best. And when something goes bad, I throw it out. I have no problem. I have 2 large garbage cans here, and there's a dump down the street. So I'll get rid of as much as I have to. That's just the way that I am. Okay, so let's see, comment-wise, such a beautiful shot in time. Yeah, I mean, and I got a lot of pictures like this. This one's black and white, but I have some in color. And by the way, the reason this is black and white is from the old Polaroid cameras. I don't know if any of you are familiar, where you would pull the film out and then you let it develop and you peel it back. So, and I still have that old camera. Again, I save all kinds of things. Okay. I agree, Mom. His mom was pretty. Well, that's why my dad married her. My friend's wife is a hoarder. It's a source of great stress. It can be, yes. It sounds like hell. It was bad. Now, again, I live in a very cluttered house, but I'm not the same as the hoarder. I have piles of stuff. I have stuff organized, but there's nothing filthy in here. And although my roof has leaked, every time I spot a leak, I quickly fix it and try to patch it. I don't have any holes in the ceiling. I got a lot of cracks, but the roof is 65 years old. Once I get enough materials together, I'm going to replace it little by little. But it's you do what you can. What happens a lot of times is when people are younger and stronger, they hoard. But then when they get older, they can no longer control the hoard. Eventually, it gets to the point because when you're young, well, I can use this, I can do this, I can do that. Then you start having health issues. You can't do much of anything. But the amazing thing is, even with all the health problems they have, they still find a way to drag the garbage out from the trash and bring it home, and they'll pile it up. And I've had several friends that they've had to deal with this where they have their parents that are just pretty bad. So, okay. And Sandy Blythe says, I bet she was happy her last few years. Yeah, she was. The funny thing was that her daughter, see what it is, she had like 3 children and they didn't get along too well. And it was kind of like, well, when their mom ended up in the hospital, they were going to put her in the nursing home. But the one daughter was kind of feeling guilty about it. So that's why she called me and said, well, anyway, if we're going to try to sell the place, we need to clean it up. So why don't we try to clean it up and see what happens? But the good thing was that she finally made peace with her kids, which I think is kind of nice because of all the problems they had. Because the dad obviously smoked and drank, and he was a constant source of aggravation. So if you have a dad who's a drunk and chain smoker, you know that that destroys a family. And after the kids left, he was still living, with her. And I guess once he died, it was many, many years she continued to live there with the place basically falling apart. But this, yeah, it was good. I have to admit, that was a good thing. And again, that's one of the reasons why I continue to do these cleanups because I've had some pretty good results. Now, I've tried to work with people while they're still living there, and that's impossible because they will drive you nuts. Oh, it's terrible. If you ever have to clean up a hoarder house with the hoarder in place, it's just bad. But when they're gone, you can it's like an archaeologist. Obviously, anything that's packaging, boxes, newspapers, or whatever can go out. And then that's it. Okay. All right. We say, Annabella says, Rick, do you think you could make a video about how to help people who hoard based on your experiences helping people? I could do that. I could definitely do that. In fact, I might do that while I deal with some of my mom's hoarded stuff that I have in her room. But now, see, my mom was a hoarder, but she was not a dirty hoarder. Her stuff was always relatively clean, and we didn't have any rats or rodents or anything like that. But my mom was a hoarder. She even kept the kitchen very cluttered. The countertop barely had any room to do anything. I'm a little different because being a carnivore, I don't have spices. There's no pantry. Carnivores don't have a pantry. All of our food's in their freezer or refrigerator. Okay, Rick, do you think you could make a video? I answer that. Am I fashionably late or inexcusably late? Thought it was Friday. You're never late here because there's always a replay. And Lori's Carnivore Story says, hi, everyone. Hello. That's great. Now, there are multiple people. Let's see. I lived with an organized, clean hoarder for a decade. Well, there you go. Now, I tend to have classifications. Everybody uses the term hoarder, but I have another term that I use, and that's a collector. There's a difference. A hoarder is someone that just keeps things to keep them. They have no purpose. They just make them feel a certain way. That's it. A collector, which is what I consider myself to be, collects things based on need. So I may have things that sit here for decades, but they're parts for something else I own. For example, the engine that was given to me is missing a flywheel and a spacer, which I can't find anywhere. If I would have saved that from years ago, even if it sat here for decades, I could still use it. When I was driving my 69 Charger, there were times where I needed a switch or I needed a wiring harness that you couldn't get anymore. I just went to my collection and I picked it up and put it in service. My Bobcat, recently, I needed a traction lock solenoid. I had one in storage. So, really, what it comes down to is if you're a collector, you use these things. Now, the other thing about a collector will often trade. So, think of like an antique store or one of these places that sells antiques, or maybe consignment or whatever. They have a lot of stuff in there, but they're ready to sell it or trade it. And that's what happens with a lot of things that I have. Not everything I have is something that I need or want. It's something that I picked up that had some value to it, and I use it as a way of trading or a way of sometimes just getting parts for other things I have. But there is a time limit on that stuff. If it's not something I'm going to use, I tend to limit it to anywhere from 1 to 5 years, depending on what it is. And once I reach that limit, I get rid of it. So a lot of things I've had, I try to sell, nobody wants to buy it. I try to give it away, nobody wants it. So what I end up doing is stripping it for parts and then scrapping it. And I'll give it to one of the scrap guys around here, or usually one of my friends, because I have several friends that scrap. So that's one way of getting rid of it. It's like Mom's old station wagon. I made videos on that. The thing sat there for years. Mom died, and then, 4 years later, it's still sitting there. I thought, well, it's reaching that 5-year limit. I'm going to cut it up. And that's exactly what I did. I got tired of seeing this thing just sit there, take up space, and rust. So I got rid of it. All right. Don't forget to give Rick a like. That is very true. I have 23 likes. I have 40 people now. So that's actually pretty good. So let's see. All right. There we go. Now, I haven't seen any more call-ins, but what I was going to try to do, I was going to try to restart the live stream, so that way, hopefully, I can get the OBS studio to work. So if it's okay with you, I may shut this one down and then try to restart it. So if anyone has an objection, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to shut down and restart. If you don't know how to find me, just check out, you're on my channel, and go to the live section. Give me like a minute or so, and hopefully it'll come back up with the OBS working. So as Lamb says, go for it. All right, I'm going to try that. Let me go ahead and close the chat window, and I'm going to log off. Now, again, I'm not disappearing. I'm just going to end stream temporarily, and I'll catch you in a few minutes. All right.